on the invitation of the Senate, following the presentation of our grievances last Wednesday over the state of things in the country, which ordinarily would say the senators know better than us the sufferings in the land. Only God knows how the much pressure you are passing through from your constituents. Problems created by the increase in pump price of PMS. The first and the second one, in that order, without anything on ground to ameliorate the sufferings of Nigerians. On the basis of that, we called for action initially. When it appeared there was nothing on ground, we held a meeting with the government. The court came up with their restraining order, but despite the court restraining order, we had an MOU with the government. And on the basis of that, we had an agreement to conclude within 8 weeks. And we started deliberation. After the first meeting, we couldn't meet again till about 6 weeks, when another increase came. As of today, we are still deliberating on the effects of the increase to 520. When the second increment came and we protested, that was when the heat was on. And we said we are going to do a nationwide protest and rally. And we are going to submit a document to the National Assembly as the people's representative on the state of things in the country. And we came. And we did that exactly. Part of our coming here today is with the belief that the document we have presented, that the leadership might have looked into it to enable us move forward. Let me also commend the Senate for living up to the 1 week they gave, because the 1 week should expire by tomorrow. Well, I think we are here now to discuss the issues. People are suffering in the country. It's like PMS is at the center of economic activities in the country. And any time it is touched, every other aspect is affected. It has never been touched like this before. The first and the second punch, without anything on ground. We have followed a trend of increase in PMS from 1970 to date. In most instances, it's better we provide something on ground to prepare the minds of the people before going into it. Well, let me say that the labor movement, unlike before, didn't go into the issue of reduce 1 naira or reduce 2 naira. We felt we should think outside the box. Because from 1970 to date, when they increase it, labor protests, goes on strike, they reduce the price, probably with 50 naira or 100 naira. But this time around, we felt we cannot continue that way. We have to think outside the box. That was what necessitated coming up with alternatives. And we resolved, since we're already working on the CNG option since 2020, and if there was consultation, we could have consummated that before the announcement. Because it is only when you have an option that the poor can breathe. Our agreement with government in 2020, the CNG was being targeted at 90 naira per litre, as an alternative to PMS that was at 185 then. And we felt that Nigerians can convert their vehicles so that we have a hybrid both PMS and CNG. We did a kind of pilot study in Edo, and over 5,000 vehicles are running on CNG already. And we felt Nigeria could adopt that option, side by side the PMS. The option of equally repair of our refineries was looked into. We can't survive on PMS that is import driven. It's just not possible, especially given the position of our naira that we can't determine. If the naira goes to dollar tomorrow by 1,000, they increase again. No country survives like that up to the following day. So we felt that while we are importing, because the refineries are not working, we should repair these refineries so that we have alternative. If the refineries are working, I'm not sure we are going to pay for PMS more than 200 naira if the refineries are working locally. And we have appealed to the government that refining is not a rocket science, that young men in the Niger Delta are doing it, and you are calling them illegal refineries. Legalize them, give them licenses, bring them as groups, as companies, get a standard measure to regulate what they are doing. Over 18 or 15 universities in Nigeria are offering courses in petrochemical engineering. And when they finish, where do they work? So we believe that these guys, could be encouraged, to do the refining job here instead of refining abroad and bringing it down here. There are over 100 products in this petroleum refining that we are missing in this country. And we felt that this economy of producing cassava in your farm and selling that cassava to buy garri cannot favor us. When you produce cassava in your farm, you take away the one you are going to process to garri and then sell the other cassava the way it is. What Nigeria is doing is selling the crude and then buying refined product. In fact, one aspect of it, and then creating jobs for workers where this refining is taking place. And I felt that our refineries should work. However, after our visit here, we met with Mr. President, and a firm promise was given based on a long agreement we have had with government from 2020. The first date for resumption of production by Port Harcourt refinery was 2021. It didn't work. We agreed on even first quarter of 2023. It didn't work. Now Mr. President reaffirmed that by December, that it will work, because he told us that the era of broken promises are over, and we want to take him by his words. That was the basis at which. Now we looked at the effects of all this, the issue of wage. It has, in fact, the wage doesn't matter, the 30,000 naira wage they are paying as minimum wage. A loaf of bread now is over 1,000. And then if you decide to eat one loaf a day with your family, 30 days, you won't have money to buy pure water to support it. So the Nigerians can't even go to work, our members. Even in our own little offices, they don't come to work because the wage is bad. It goes into transportation alone. So we had agreed for a wage award, which is not new in Nigerian parlance. From the dodgy days, dodgy award, to even early this year when the federal government paid 40% award to some of their employees based on the effects of COVID-19. So it's not minimum wage, because minimum wage we sign here will be due for review next year, and it's a law. Anytime we finish negotiating minimum wage, it comes to the National Assembly for it to be legislated upon. So we are conscious of that, and we have agreed on wage award, and up to this moment the Committee on Wage Award is yet to sit. We have looked at the issue of cash transfer that the federal government mentioned following the 800 million loan from World Bank. As we talk today, nothing has happened there. We have not even perfected the list of the people who will benefit from this. Initially, we had issues when they said they are paying 50 million Nigerians 5,000 naira. And we said no. Even if you follow the report from Bureau of Statistics, it says that 133 million Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. To situate the person that is even the poorest of the poor in Nigeria is an issue, and we have to look at it, look at the record. We shouldn't follow the record that was used during the COVID-19. We have our doubt on that record. But as of today, work has not started on that. We don't know the basis to dictate who is the poor, who is the poorest of the poor in the context of the negotiation we are going into. I've talked about the CNG, the issue of tertiary education is a big challenge. It's a big challenge to all of us. You can see that the ASU, after so many years, the agreement was not honored by government. And they cried. And the government equally went further to, to now say that they will not pay them for almost 8 months. So, as lawmakers, if you have had an agreement with somebody and you fail to obey the agreement, and the person decides to cry, and you further punish him for crying, I don't know what that law is all about, whether it's not one-sided. You had an agreement with ASU for almost 9 years, it was not implemented. The only thing they could do is to protest, to say they are not going to work, and you say you will not pay them. Now you have benefited for your own disobedience of the agreement and for your failure to respect the sanctity of that agreement. I've talked about some of the short-term measures like mass transit. We discussed with the committee where we were meeting, and railway system, that will probably the mass transit that will be based on, that will be CNG driven, because that will reduce the cost of transportation in the country. We looked at the cost of governance, which we took personally, Mr. President, that we should look at it. We can't continue to look at big money, especially for our people appointed by government. At the time, people can't eat. It creates a kind of we and them in the society. It doesn't make sense. Every Nigerian should show some level of commitment that I'm making a sacrifice, at least for us to come out from where we are today. So we discussed it with Mr. President. We looked at intervention in the health sector as well, because not everyone can afford to travel abroad, to take care of their health. But part of the challenge we had, which we took up with Mr. President, was the issue of the committee put in place. The committee seemed not to be capable. We have, as Labour, we have done negotiation and engagement with government from the time of Ekaete as the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, from the time of Kingibe, from the time of Pius Anyim, and the time of Boss Mustafa. That's the list we have had. At no time had the Chief of Staff to the President, who is very busy, been called to negotiate or lead negotiation, because he doesn't have time. Because that is more than a full-time job, if you look at what happens at the presidency, and that has delayed the job there so much. Even after that our protest up to now, the meeting has not been reconvened, although Mr. President promised that he is going to restructure the mechanism for which we are engaging with government, so that things could, be treated fast. So we suggest, or we still plead, that you put your heads together with Mr. President, so that we can have a committee that is meeting. But this is like an emergency. People are still trekking, people are suffering. and we are seen as doing a meeting forever that is not holding, that we don't have mandate. Apart from the Chief of Staff to the President, the next person is an SA to the President on energy. And I don't think that is a full representative of the state, for us to handle this matter. So we have come to you to able, list this out so that we can facilitate this. I'm not here, if I continue to talk about the issue of VAT, inflation, and all that is happening in this country, I'll be repeating myself, because you know better, as the representatives of the people. No matter what you are paid here, it will not be enough for you to even to give people 5,000 who are suffering, some of your constituents. So those are some of the reasons why we are here, and this thing cannot continue forever. But let me quickly say, sir, that the NLC and others that threatened us in a democracy, yesterday withdrew their threat that a rally is now a strike, that a rally is now being criminalized. And we had equally argued this, in some landmark judgments, especially the one that affected ANPP and Nigerian police. And it was clear that you can't stop Nigerians. In fact, Nigerians don't need police permit to hold their rally in this country. And I want to plead that we should not allow that to happen, where Nigerians cannot express their freedom of assembling freely, as people of Nigeria, because the court decides to say so. And when the court gave an order and said status quo remains, that it was wrong for another increase to have come up, because that was the cause of the problem, the increase. And one party to obey the issue of status quo remaining, and the other party should not obey it. I think we need to, equally get the courts to stand up, to know that they are Nigerians, for us to equally look at the issue of the law and justice, so that we can carry the two side by side. I'm not sure the judges and the lawyers and Nigerians are not paying the same amount. If some people, by their privilege, some of us that earn better salary, won't because of that now lose sense that there are people that are earning 30,000 naira, and that there's no vehicle that you fill the tank with 30,000 now. And even if you do that with 30,000,